Good morning, everyone, and welcome to, oh, gee, I don't even know what number this is, but I will find out shortly, and maybe Joe or someone will tell me. We're advancing steadily.
It's number 49.
Number 49. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. We're advancing steadily in this study of triangles. However, inevitably, since the most occult book the Tibetan wrote, at least according to his own estimation, is esoteric astrology because it deals solely with energies, we're also having to learn a little bit about astrology as we go along. And maybe more than a little bit, actually, because the first 12 chapters are very interesting in terms of the zodiac, but then he begins to deal with some major syntheses, starting with the science of triangles. So, in fact, we have an opportunity to get deeply into the esoteric astrology work. Let's just have a little alignment. And we realize somehow all the many triangles, all the way from our own etheric nature to the etheric nature of the planet, to the etheric nature of the solar system, and to the cosmic ethers, which are going to take us into an extra systemic area. And this work that we're doing right now, it's not totally universal, unless we count the idea of universality as relating to the solar system. But if we use universe as it's used today, we will have to stop at the one about whom naught may be said, our particular one of 49 such beings, and it'll be our local cosmos. So pretty well that's where we are. The masters may know some of the names and qualities of associated galaxies in the neighborhood, and DK certainly tells us that is the case. You know, such a galaxy as Andromeda would be well known to them, and what it does and the relationship between our own Milky Way and that greater still galaxy, Andromeda. But this is information that is not yet really disclosed, and you can be sure that there are 7 major galaxies in our local area which are gathered together to form the major chakras of a super entity, and on it will go. So we're not really speaking about universality in the ultimate sense. We're speaking about our solar system and its immediate environs. But that's quite enough for us, considering that the Christ and those of equal rank like the Buddha have not yet transited to a specific focus on the cosmic astral or cosmic mental planes. So the thing that I would like us to realize is that we are operating in a very large context, large for us, and that we might as well be patient, because the type of evolution through which we are going to pass will require, if the ancient chronology is correct, even trillions and maybe more of our Earth years. So we might as well settle into this great planetary, systemic, and extraplanetary process, because the adventures along the way will be many as they have ever been in the universes produced by the great breath of the secret doctrine. And this kind of lifts our little lives out of their immediate and apparently very small context into something much larger as we gradually move towards the apex of the, I'll just call it, the universal pyramid. So let's see what we can learn together. Well, okay. I'd like to welcome those of you who have made it this morning. Anna, Annette, Antoinette, Barbara, Brennan, Catherine, Chris, Frederick, Ishtar, Karen, Carrie, Leslie, Mariut, Martha, Natnia, Rebecca, Risto, Tia, Vera, Walter, Zenaide, and Veronica. And over here on the side of staff, Joe is helping us, and Tuya also. So we'll try to have our reading, continuing with the idea of crisis. Crisis will always be, or will always offer a point of decision. I guess I just want to get out of there. Right. Okay. Hopefully, there we go. It will always offer a point of decision. And depending upon the decision will be either the progress, the stasis, or the retrogression. And hopefully we are being wise enough these days to make the correct types of decisions, because we are disciples now, and every disciple is being prepared for initiation, which is dependent upon a number of correct decisions. So, okay, and just to welcome Zipporah, and then I'll have to say that that's all I can do for the moment. Now, we discussed 5 crises the last time we met. The crisis of incarnation, which we called individualization. It's not the only one connected with individualization. The signs Leo and Gemini are also connected. So in a way, you have Gemini, Cancer, and Leo all connected with the process of coming into the human form. And that, you know, if you go opposite those signs, for some of you who know the astrology, you will have Capricorn and Aquarius, and Sagittarius, which is going to maybe not lead up to the final shambolic possibilities, but certainly up to the possibility of release into the state of world server. And have I gotten everybody here? I hope so. I think so. If I've left you out, I apologize. Just my eye jumping, because I also see Tia and Vera. Yeah, I might have jumped over that. Okay, well, welcome. So, these final signs of the zodiac, Sagittarius as the antechamber to initiation, Capricorn as initiation, and Sagittarius, Aquarius as the distribution of the results of initiation, are all very important. And then finally we come to Pisces, which is the most difficult and most accomplished and most consummate of all the signs leading into world saviorship and a particular condition of the will, which is understood in Shambhala. So the crisis of incarnation is counterposed by other constellations which lead us out of incarnation entirely and into other kingdoms, the kingdom of souls, the kingdom of planetary lives, and so forth. We talked about the crisis of orientation when we stop dealing with the personality only, and the pairs of opposites begin to enter our consideration. We must include any kind of Uranian sign in that reversal, and certainly Libra is included. The crisis of initiation, well, characteristically it's Capricorn, and Capricorn is said to, in a way, rule the first 5 initiations. But particularly it's associated with initiation number 1. Well, I can associate it with all of them, actually, but, let's just say the birth of the Christ at the time of conventionally Christmas, the winter solstice is a Capricorn event, and the third initiation particularly is a Capricorn event. And every time you climb a mountain of initiation and see just a little bit farther, Capricorn is involved. And, you can't really jump from peak to peak. You have to move down the mountain and climb the next higher mountain as the next possibility. Then the crisis of renunciation, which is done through loving sacrifice, and hence Gemini as the major second-ray sign and the head of the cosmic Christ, is definitely involved here, but not only Gemini. And we'll have to say that the ego on the higher mental plane is sort of put to death. And I would say that Leo as the ego and the death-dealing Plutonic signs such as Pisces and Scorpio are involved in this process of liberation from the causal body. And then, not necessarily in order, but the crisis of the battlefield. Well, there are just all these battles which take place on the burning ground before we go from initiation to initiation. But maybe this involves also the battlefield of humanity trying to arise, and what one must do and sacrifice in order to be part of that uplifting of the whole, rather than the uplifting simply of the individual. So, you can kind of place yourself as to where what is the process through which you are moving? And that takes us to some of today's material, which is, you see, it's not going in order. And of course, the Tibetan has always a reason for, if he puts things out of order, out of order as we understand it, then he has some kind of reason for doing so. The crisis of the birthplace. Now, of course, Capricorn is involved in that, but so is Virgo, the mother, the great mother, ruling the last half of the previous major solar system, just like another sort of mother sign, Cancer, ruled the first half of the previous major solar system. So it's on the mutable cross, and it makes possible the emergence from preoccupation with the material aspects of life, and by that I mean the personality, into a sensing of the soul and of what we might call the higher of the pairs of opposites. There's a long time that we have to battle between these vertical pairs of opposites, and people at our stage of evolution are still in that particular battle. Maybe once we've reached the fourth degree, that battle is over. That particular battle, but even the rich young man who had led a very just and upright and spiritually useful life had a battle on his hands and did not win. So he went sadly away, unable somehow to find it within himself to commit the entire content of his causal body to the great process of the plan and concentrate on the Christ force, following the Christ force through sacrifice and relinquishment. So Virgo makes sense, identified as it is particularly with the third aspect of divinity, at least in the previous solar system. Now, interestingly, this sign has changed its rays. I often suspect, and some of my colleagues with whom I have discussed this suspect, that the rays of Virgo, or at least the rays to which we on Earth responded, and our solar system responded to Virgo in the previous major solar system, were the third ray and the seventh ray, rays of form, just as even now Cancer gives us the third and the seventh ray. But Virgo has changed. And Virgo is now delivering into our solar system, and I don't know if it's especially onto our planet or whether the other planets in our system are so attuned to Virgo that they are receiving the same rays we are, because every great constellation has all the rays. I mean, if a planet can have all the rays, for heaven's sake, then so can a great constellation. But we are receiving particularly the second ray and the sixth ray. And those rays are very much attuned with the second aspect of divinity, and not just with the formal aspects of divinity. Now, who knows what Virgo may be in the next solar system? No doubt it, as the heart and the head center, all of those 12 of this great being called the one about whom not may be said, Virgo will be present, because the one about whom not may be said has not yet fully developed our solar system, nor the cosmic system in which our solar system plays a small but significant part of the heart. So this is the beginning. When we have the crisis of the birthplace, there'll be a big battle, as one begins participating in the life of the fifth kingdom of nature. Now, I assume that, pretty much everybody here feels that the presence of the fifth kingdom, the kingdom of souls, we know perhaps that we are not entirely mature yet within this kingdom of souls. It's more like the masters are the mature ones and there are higher initiates and so forth. But we are entering the kingdom of souls, and in a way, Virgo Pisces, a combination there, is taking us into the kingdom of souls, which in a way is ruled by the second ray, maybe with some fifth ray connected with it. So this is Virgo opens the door to the beginning of the initiatory process. And it also is found with the purifications of the second degree and probably with certain higher initiations as well. All of these constellations, as I tried to show in my video book, The Egoic Lotus, can have an effect on just about every level of human evolution. And so while a particular constellation may be known for being particularly effective in a certain area, it can be effective in all the areas. So let's say you're working on the second initiation. You can use all of the signs of the zodiac to further your progress in that second initiation. You don't only have to stick to Scorpio or Virgo or, those particularly targeting constellations. All right, now this is interesting. The next one is the crisis of the burning ground, and it's obviously not the earlier applications of Leo. One of the earliest applications of Leo is the very first initiation, and this crisis of the burning ground and liberation are beyond that particular stage. But if we go back far enough, what we will also find is that when we were individualized and began to come to ourselves as an apparently independent being, Leo was involved then too. So do not expect that these constellations have only one target and one area of human advancement where they can be useful. But this one is quite late in the day, and in my view, relates particularly to the fifth initiation, Leo being the fifth sign. And the number 5 having so much to do with the whole electrical phenomena and the electric fire that is required at this fifth initiation. The final burning ground, I think, is ruled by Leo and Uranus, and I think it's the burning ground leading up to the fifth degree, which is real liberation. So, and it clears the atmosphere of obscuring influences so that one really sees ahead. It's called not the it's not called the initiation of resurrection. No, not anymore. It's not. Excuse me. But rather that of revelation. And there are a number of revelations that come in here, but what is a particular revelation is at least a revelation to study and think about the 7 paths on the way of higher evolution, and now there are 9 paths, and which one may be one's own path to take. And from what I've been able to gather, it is pretty much the same as the path upon which one as a monad descended. So we're retracing our steps. Well, there are different associations for Leo. As I say, this blazing glory of the initiative of the fifth degree, whose symbol is the sun, and the sun being the ruler of Leo. And in that light, we see far ahead into the possibilities on these still higher cosmic planes. So we don't have to worry about running out of things to do that are interesting. We'll always be introduced, once we accomplish what we must, to greater heights still unscaled. We can associate Leo with the fourth initiation, which is the end of the necessity to reincarnate. And pretty much Scorpio and Pisces takes care of that through the destruction of the Leonian causal body. Our causal body is shining, we're told, with a magnificent display. We might call it a Leonian display. And we are freed of that into something even more glorious. So Leo rules fiery pain, and maybe for many, at the fourth degree, the statement, my God, why hast thou forsaken me, applies. And there is fiery pain and a great sense of loss initially, but it is very soon compensated by the higher possibilities of the spiritual triad, in which one can be polarized now without the limitations of the Leonian causal body. So destruction so as by fire. There's a great illumination as a result of this destruction by fire. Well, now none of us is there yet, and I at the conferences it's kind of a joke. I've met quite a number of masters at the conferences, and they presume that they are masters, and they are sincere students in their own way. I've met them internationally too, where they do their very best to convince me that they have taken their fifth initiation, but in every other respect, there is no demonstration that is actually the case. But it's interesting to follow the line of reasoning that such people do use. But ahead of us looms this third, fourth, fifth initiation and initiations beyond. And inevitably we will pass through these things, these states, and as I said before, the Tibetan says that very many initiates of the fifth degree will be required in the future for humanity to advance. So then the last one that he is listing here is the crisis of the burning ground, and preceded by the crisis of the birthplace. Well, birth into what, Maybe there's a birth into the kingdom of planetary lives. See, this is very interesting. Now, the sign Virgo opens the door to the birth we call the birth of Christ within the heart, and Virgo has so much 2 and 6 with it that the heart center is affected. But look, the plane on which the monad is found, and here I think I might be able to show this, possibly. Yes, I think I can. Okay. Well, here's Virgo. ruling the second plane of the cosmic physical plane on which the monad has been found. And so it's a new type of birth. It's a birth into the kingdom of planetary lives from a very high place within the kingdom of souls. So Virgo and Pisces both are ruling this monadic plane, and when you are a free monad, liberated from this temple that we call the Temple of Ezekiel, and probably know nothing about it, then we begin a whole new kingdom, participation in a whole new kingdom. If you're looking for a triangle of kingdoms which are accessible to humanity at the present time, you will find the human kingdom, the kingdom of souls, and the kingdom of planetary lives, the participants in which are relatively free monads. When is the monad finally and ever free? You would have to say that only when the great and complete pilgrimage before the universal Mahapralaya occurs, then it is that the monad will be completely free. Now, DK doesn't say all these things, but what he does do is set up a network of implications which you just cannot resist, because they all point in the same direction, and he allows you to bring closure to the implications which he is indicating, and the ability to do so is one of those abilities we want to cultivate. Okay, now, while I was doing a little research, or I guess what do I call research? It's the rereading of the books with an idea to discover still something new, if it is possible. So there were 3 more crises which looked like they should be taken into consideration. And here on page 260-something, let's see, 262 or 264, 265, I guess. In the same book, we have additional commentary on crises which are not mentioned in the first series of 7 crises through which all human beings must pass. However, Leo is mentioned and Capricorn is mentioned, but Libra is not mentioned. And Libra is another one of those signs where crisis can appear. So we will start to read from, I think, page excuse me, from page 265. I'm hoping that that is correct. So, from this group of signs and their attendant constellations, because he's listed 9 signs which lead to the birth in Virgo, 3 are omitted. These are Leo, Libra, and Capricorn. These 3 signs are all signs of crisis. So let's include them in the kinds of crises through which we will be moving or have moved. These 3 signs are all signs of crisis and indicate the progressive influence of the other 9 and the situations which evolve out of their activity. So sometimes we'll study the other 9. Basically, we, of course, should study the entire esoteric astrology book. I have given you the opportunity to do that if you want to study it from my perspective. Maybe just a very few have done that, but I've gone through every page, every paragraph, every sentence, almost every word of the esoteric astrology book, and you can find them on Makara, one program after another, and you can find it also on YouTube. So that's one way to study, and it'll take a while. But, sometimes when we have a chance to discuss in real time, it's helpful. I wish I could, study. Well, they're all significant books, but I wish I could study all or most of them with you. At least we do have the opportunity to do that somewhat with the Glamour book, with the Destiny of the Nations book, with the Reappearance of the Christ book, which Tuya and I are offering in these Ask webinars. Okay, so these 3 signs, Leo, Libra, and Capricorn, and just think for a minute. Do you know the rulers? Do you know the rulers of these signs? Or should we say the ray rulers? With Leo, it's ray 1 and 5, right? With Libra, it's only ray 3, as far as what the Tibetan gives, though there's space for rays 1, 2, and 3. How does he do it? Sort of law, sex, and money. That's the 1, 2, and 3 of Libra. But only 3 does he list. And Capricorn, 1, 3, and 7. What do you notice? Only one of them. Interesting that each one of these signs has either 1 ray, 2 rays, or 3 rays. 3 rays or a triangle is the most that you're ever given as rulers of a particular sign, and Sagittarius is the other one. Capricorn and Sagittarius are the 2 signs or constellations which have 3 ray rulers. And you'll notice that in what the Tibetan gives, there's not one soft line ray as a rulership ray. Now, I do infer, and I find out how the second ray can be related to Leo and how the second ray can be related to Libra, but he definitely doesn't give it. He just implies that there are ways to interpret these 2 signs in relation to the second ray, and they certainly do lead into the 5th kingdom, ruled by, in a way, the second ray. So anyway, Leo, Libra, and Capricorn, 3 signs of crisis, and indicate the progressive influence of the other 9, the kinds of crises we run into when we follow out the influence of the other 9, what is going to evolve out of their activity. Because in a way, they're all signs of initiation, these 3. Now, what does DK say about them? They are the testing points in the process of the play of energies from the other 9 signs, as these energies affect human aspirants. So we cannot escape tests where it is demonstrated whether we have succeeded or not succeeded in learning the necessary lessons and can pass the test without attachment to the lower state and move into the higher state. And let's take a look at how he describes these, because we have this crisis of what I call the final burning ground, and he calls it the burning ground, and it leads to real liberation. And what's liberation after all? At least the 4th initiation, and certainly the 5th. But this is different. Earlier, he talked about Cancer as indicating the crisis of individualization. But here it's Leo, and this shows itself as two stages. Diffused inchoate power, because Leo has a lot of first ray in it and always feels itself at a certain point to be possessed of the kingly rulership power, but it's not entirely focused yet. And this also indicates the moving out of the diffused Cancerian state into a more focused, pointed, emergent state. Leo allows that point of light to appear within the inchoate state of Cancer and begin to grow. And finally, it does grow into personality integration. It will grow into still more. So it signifies the emergence of personality. So we're back at an early stage, right? And preparation for the Christ experience takes a long time. It is self-consciousness and the lower synthesis. Now, when you're walking in the hall of ignorance, you may not know it. Probably you won't know it until the higher of the pairs of opposites, the higher power, the higher soul, whatever, begins to appear. And then you're no longer in the hall of ignorance per se. You're not just rambling around those first three petals. You have taken steps into the second group of petals. And I think, we're familiar with this idea. The first three petals have to do with the hall of ignorance, and they take such a long time to unfold. And then we go into this hall of learning with petals number 4, 5, and 6. Now that's at least where we should be as students of these things. And we should be in the later part, actually, of the hall of learning. That's where we should be ready to make our transition onto the fixed cross. Once we're on the fixed cross, we're beyond the hall of learning, and we really have begun to enter the hall of wisdom. But as Leo is being described here, it's not this final burning ground where the causal body is being destroyed and where this blazing sun of the triad and monad are shining away. No, it's not that. So there's different places you can apply the Leo energy. So that's what it signifies here, at least. The emergence of personality. Now, not everybody's a personality. Just because you can feel and you can think, it doesn't make you a personality. That whole integration of the three lower aspects has to occur before we are a real personality and not just a higher specimen of the mass consciousness. Okay, well, there is giving us another angle on Leo. But there's also Libra, the crisis of balance. Now, he has not mentioned that. And when would that occur? And have we passed through it, or are we passing through it, whatever? The emergence of the sense of self-direction and equilibrium. So this is, whoopsie, that won't do. That's far too many. All right, so let me see how this can work. Okay. All right. I'll change the color there, I think. Very quickly. Okay, let's make it blue. All right. It is the beginning of the path. The path of spirituality. It's Libra that rules the beginning of the path of spirituality. And we begin in a balanced manner to tread that path. It is the point of equilibrium between soul and form. And, the Libran type keeps the balance, which is, of course, aggressively destroyed when Scorpio takes over. But at first, the Libran finds it necessary to keep the balance between soul and form. It signifies the emergence of free choice, and I might say free choice, and I'm always doing this. I'm sorry. I've got to do better. Okay, so it's free choice through mentality. And Libra is a very mental sign. DK tells us it rules super mind. I suppose that's the mind as found within the spiritual triad. So, whereas Gemini rules the ordinary mind, we might say higher and lower mind, Libra rules super mind, and the other air sign, Aquarius, rules universal mind. So this Libra thing, it is the consciousness of duality and the effort to balance the two. So this is coming before you are entirely committed to the path of spirituality. There's a balancing up of the various forces, and then you may take the real plunge. As for Capricorn, it's pretty similar to what was listed when the 7 were listed, the crisis of initiation. This exists in 5 stages, at least for us. The first 5, of course, it exists in many more stages, and the number 7 and the number 9 are not uncommonly heard of in relation to initiation. So, but, okay, he says this crisis of initiation exists in 5 stages and signifies the emergence of the dominating Christ life, and we might say here, through the solar angel. He's talking about that which dominates. He is talking about this great being called the solar angel, and eventually we, the monad, once we have a grip upon ourselves and have returned to that high state, then we actually are in charge. So the higher synthesis and the control of the Christ consciousness, which is group consciousness. So the secret of the soul is given in Capricorn. Now, if it was just what we know about the soul, it wouldn't be enough. He wouldn't refer to the secret. There are various secrets, that are given by the Tibetan. And let me just review them very quickly, if I can. Secret of the soul. Oh, there's a lot of them. Goodness. Let's see if I can. Oh, there's only one here. Okay. Capricorn guards the secret of the soul itself. And this it reveals to the initiate at the time of the third initiation. This is sometimes called the secret of the hidden glory, and we do know or have been told that the Christ through Jesus was transfigured and glorified in a way before the disciples which he took with him into the desert. Now also Libra is mentioned. What secret is that? Libra guards the secret of balance, of equilibrium, and finally speaks the word which releases the initiate from the power of the lords of karma. And that's a new piece of information. And Libra governs the royal road into Shambhala, so it has a high meaning. It's associated with the sixth initiation, and the sixth initiation is associated with the monad, which is associated with Shambhala. So this is altogether a higher meaning for Libra. Gemini guards and now here we're not using Leo. Gemini guards the mystery or secret of duality and presents the initiate with a word which leads to the fusion of the greater of the pairs of opposites, and maybe we're talking about monad and soul personality. It does seem that we are descending here from the top rather than ascending towards the top. Well, the great thing about the Tibetan is he keeps on giving you all these different perspectives, and somehow we have to figure out, put them all together, have them make sense, see how the energies are circulating in triangles mostly, see how they affect us. It's a long study, but then DK said, I have given you more than you can ever absorb. So I think that's far enough for this morning, at least the morning here. And this will be the end of this particular reading. And we'll be starting with number 50 next time when we get together. But now you have the 7 crises plus 3. And there's very little repetition among them. So we're going ending here, number 49, and this is the 4th of September. So we'll do this. Oh, goodness, come on now. Okay, so this will be 4 September 19, and we're still on, I suppose, whatever page it is, page 473, something like that. And
I think it's still 472.
Is it, Joe? Thank you. I do depend on the corrective voice of God. You know, it's a Trinity, really. We have 3 people usually there. And so one of the Trinity corrects me when I'm off. Okay, so this will be the 11th of September, and let's see where we are here.
So today is number 49, and we are on the morning schedule now.
Yeah, that's right.
And so 50 will be on the
Evening
evening schedule.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, then we're not moving too fast, but we are penetrating into these crises. Now, look at your life for just a minute. You know, your incarnation, and, you know, probably most of us who are studying these things have had some experience. Some may be younger than others or older than others in terms of bodily age, but look at a couple of crises which you have experienced, really, really what you consider crisis moments. Now, he does differentiate between the crises that are spiritual and the crises that have the more personal tinge. But sometimes you can take a personal crisis and really convert it so that it has a spiritual value. And when we do that, we have to take a look and see, has the crisis that I can identify, or the few crises that are of importance in my life, have these crises led to a greater spiritual unfoldment? And were they simply crises of the personality, or have I been able to get the soul aspect out of them? So there are two kinds of crisis that DK mentions. One is called the crisis of opportunity, and it's taken relatively early in our process. You know, opportunity comes along, maybe through Saturn, who knows, to enter the spiritual field and learn, really learn, what is the ageless wisdom. And then later in life, what are you going to do with it? Because a lot of people, you know, they just learn, and they don't apply. Well, just take a look at what he said to RSU, who was one of Alice Bailey's leading disciples and responsible for the editing of so much that had to be produced. And he says, look, you've got so much in you, in your notebooks, etc. You don't make any use of it. Why don't you make that available to people? Put it in a form that it can be used by the people. And this is called, and maybe, you know, those of us who are a little older, we have experienced it, it's called the crisis of expression. And it takes place decades, possibly, after the crisis of opportunity. Maybe not so long for some, but it can happen later, after a requisite amount of learning and understanding and meditation has occurred. The crisis of expression. So, crisis of opportunity, crisis of expression, 7 crises of the soul, through which all human beings must pass, and 3 additional crises, if we extend the whole idea back to individualization that include Leo, and if that turning point, the reversal of the wheel, is included as a crisis, then Libra will be very important, along with Aries, because they're both ruled by Uranus. The important thing is to know where we stand and what we're going through, and to induce, if we can, the crisis that will allow us to move further into our spiritual potentials. Okay, friends, so now, you know, it's about time, isn't it? I really ought to turn this over to you before it's too late. Then we'll have just a little, you know, tonight we'll have our more usual triangles meditation. Will be a broadcast, and Tuya will lead that, and it'll be at 5 p.m.
Do you want to take a look at the questions that Frederick has offered?
I do. Any questions that are coming up. Not that I can necessarily answer them. Yes, always something is being born, and you can look at this crisis that Virgo leads us into as operating at all of these personal kind of initiations, the first, second, and even the third. They are the initiations of the body, etheric, physical, of the astral body, and of the mind. So whenever we're confronted with larger possibilities, our present state of organization is challenged. And we have the choice of ignoring the new information or the new possibilities, or somehow reorganizing our life so we come to birth in a new way. We're always coming to birth. Even after we die, we wake up and come to birth in a new world. And then, as Manly Hall says, the veil parts again, and we are back in incarnation, awakening to what looks to us like a new set of circumstances. The crisis of the birthplace, the impact on our daily life, and any relationship between this crisis phenomena and triangle energies. Well, there's always the 1, 2, and 3 of it. There's always the 3 aspects in any crisis. And the lowest aspect shows us unaware in many respects that there is a crisis or that we could potentially have one. We're immersed in the lower state. Then comes the second aspect of the triangle, which is the aspect of duality, and we're going to be torn. That's why it is said of the second-rate type that they agonize their way towards the goal. It's in the book, but somehow the people who made the CD-ROM made a mistake there, and it took me a long time to realize that had happened. So when you look at the word, look for the word agonized, and it may not be there the way it should, but I did find it, and I'll see if I can only one. No, that's not it. As I say, it's either spelled that way or it's spelled differently. It might be spelled Agonise. There are the English spellings. Here it is. This is the second ray. Okay. As I told you in my last communication, the path of the world saviors, we might call it the Piscean path, is a hard one, owing primarily to the power to suffer, which the second-rate type embodies. This is, of course, in itself the principle of manifestation and holds the key to existence. Hence, therefore, the ability of the person upon this ray to agonize towards the goal, and usually to agonize, you have to be torn, right? Because the tearing is what is causing the pain. Shall it be this or that? And we're pulled in 2 directions primarily, high and lower. The ability of the person upon this ray to agonize towards the goal, carrying the burden of the world, as in Gemini and in Aquarius, learning through identification with others a detachment which, at this, as time proceeds, negates all pain. Note the paradox here involved, and learn its meaning, which, my brother, is your task in life. So I'm going to just, yeah. All right, there it is. Agonizing towards the goal. So coming back to your questions and just having to find them again, right? I will find them, hopefully. Here.
I put all three in the chat box for you.
Okay, thank you. That's kind. And then I managed to dig this up too. So in any way, by the time we reach electrical energy, a real liberation takes place. And we are generally freed of the temple that we have been using to cultivate our spiritual abilities. Now, a temple is like a womb, it's a protected place. And inside the temple, all kinds of growth can take place, and it's done under the second aspect of divinity. But there comes a time, whether it's under Vulcan or Uranus or the, electric fire, the lightning, whatever first ray kind of influence we're talking about, the temple is shattered and the volatile essence is liberated. And that's the electric fire. Now, that electric fire is only liberated, in a sense, into yet another condition of relative, though higher, confinement, and then it's brought to a temple for cultivation, and then bang, there it goes again. There will be the shattering, and on we go until we are restored to the high place of the universal logos. So the answer, from my perspective, Frederick, is that we're going to fight it out, usually under the agony of the second ray or the fourth ray, and we go from a state of confinement to knowing the pairs of opposites and fighting between them to a state of liberation. And yes, the triangle connection is there in staging our liberation into the next opportunity for crisis. Okay, and energies named in this figure. Gosh, I've got to find the figure.
When you were referring to the Virgo, the monadic plane, that chart.
Yeah, that's the pairs of opposites. And Virgo rules the monadic plane. Pisces is involved too, but it's a very high place in the structure of man. Now what happens? When the temple of Ezekiel, about which, what can we know except that Ezekiel saw the wheel. He must have been a great astrologer. That's broken. And into the sea of fire goes the essential volatile monad and spends time there in the liberated state. But that liberation is only temporary and partial and will lead to new states of confinement with a 1, 2, 3 of crisis and liberation all the way up. Now, we cannot presume that we know what those crises will be or whether they even appear as the kind of crises that we experience, but we can analogize and get the idea that 3 steps are required. And at first you're not awake, then you are awake, and then you're free. And it takes a long time.
And this was the chart of the creative hierarchies, correct?
Right, I think so. Because, yeah, I think so. Hold on, let me just get this thing if I can. Yeah, here we are. There it is, from Virgo to Leo. So there's Leo showing up in a high place, not just individualization, not just the first initiation, but the transition from off the cosmic physical plane at the seventh initiation into the cosmic astral plane. So, oh, and by the way, I left one out. Leo will also show up at the fifth degree. So Leo in many places. And what you can do, and what I've tried to do in, I don't know if I succeeded, but in the book on the monad, not on the monad, but the book about the egoic lotus, I've tried to show the different places where the zodiacal signs and their rulers can be active in different ways. And we may not suspect those ways. But then if we gather them all together, we begin to see, hey, these are great constellational gods, and you can use their energies in various ways according to the level of evolution that you have reached. Now, most of us are using Leo right now to shine, dissipate glamour, have the radiance of transfiguration one day, not too long from now maybe, and then eventually achieve the full radiation of the causal body which is about to be destroyed. But when we enter the sea of fire later and have achieved the fifth degree and beyond and so forth, Leo will be there again. And who knows what we can expect from it on the cosmic astral plane and cosmic mental plane and so forth, because those great beings have causal bodies too. So we learn very well what applies to man, and then we analogize in a careful manner, so we have speculative reason operating and ascend into parallel spaces where we might presume that something of the same structure, though elevated, prevails. That will be our method. Okay, Frederick, I hope I covered a few things there. Excuse me. Other thoughts? We're into astrology, we're into triangularization, and you can make a lot of triangles out of these things if you think about it. Look at the triangle that we just, in a way, discussed. Here is the one that I wanted to mention. It's Leo, it's Libra, and this should be actually a number 3 is what it should be, not number 4. It's a triangle, isn't it? Think of it. You're individualized. You grow into personality expression under Leo, and you reach the point where, more things are happening. There's a higher of the pairs of opposites now. There's a higher power. You're not just a personality. There's a higher power and a lower power. Now you're in Libra. Here they go. Or this way, What's going to happen? How will you decide? Okay. If you decide incorrectly, for a while you'll fall back into Virgo. If you decide correctly, you'll go forward into the battles of Scorpio. Some people are born with a Libra sun and a Scorpio ascendant. That pretty well tells you the story. Everything's nice for half of the life, and then in comes the power of Scorpio, and it's not so nice anymore. All right, and then, if you make the right decision, then Libra will lead to Scorpio, will lead to Sagittarius, will lead to Capricorn, and you will take the initiation which is yours to take as the next one. There's a triangle. Leo, the very beginning, Libra, the well, we can't really call it the midway point because it's really more towards the future, but let's call it a semi-midway point. Libra, Capricorn, the result, a triangle that leads us all the way from the first, or rather, entry into the fourth kingdom of nature to entry via Capricorn into the fifth kingdom of nature, the kingdom of souls. So that is, WinZip wants me to do something here, but I don't want to, and I don't know how quite to get rid of it. So, I do know how to get rid of it. It'll just take a second here. Control Alt Delete, and maybe I can succeed. I don't know. Joe, which one would you suggest pressing before I make everything disappear?
I tried Task Manager, or it is the Task Manager.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah, it's just one of those things.
If you move that WinZip box up, you should be able to exit it in some way. They put the
Yeah, okay. I don't want to get stuck here, But
All right.
I'm gonna probably get stuck, and I don't want to get rid of GoToMeeting.
Click the X in the upper right corner to delete it.
And
thank you, Frederick and Walter.
Okay, both
on the right-hand side. Yeah.
What are they saying to do?
There's a
click an X. I did it, and there's a small cross on the windows.
It's a very tiny.
Oh, you're right. Oh, they keep you
barely visible.
Oh goodness, they caught me, didn't they? All right, okay. And thank you guys. I remember now. Okay, other questions or statements that you would like to go over? Look, the whole idea is everything is filled with triangles, and these triangles are progressive. Like we just studied a triangle, didn't we? It was Leo, Virgo, Pisces. What is that? And that is, okay, Leo, we are individualized. Virgo, the Christ consciousness is being born in us. Pisces, we are liberated into the world Savior. We become that. But you can also say Leo, Virgo, Aquarius. It's another one. We are individualized. The Christ consciousness grows in us, and then we become the world server filled with group consciousness. Okay? Here's another triangle. I mean, you can just pick them out and interpret them according to your best ability. Here's Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. What are you going to do with that? So, you catch a vision. The vision leads to the mountaintop, to the mountain of initiation. You climb the mountain, you're initiated, and now you climb down and you spread what you received. There it is, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. Then every quadrant of the astrological chart has its triangle. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, very subjective. I mean, a lot of astrologers get into this. They say, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, it's expressive. And Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, it's relational. And Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, it's transcendent. I'll give you because that's an important one. Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. You are initiated. You come down the mountain and you spread the energy around. You want to continue on the path of world saviorship because the path of world service, though beautiful and needed, is not quite enough sacrifice. So you want to enter Shambhala. Pisces waits you. and you become the world's savior, not just the world's server. And that lies ahead of us, okay? And we have to learn how to do that. But of course, first, really, our goal is Capricorn. And of course, you take the second initiation, it's fellowship, it's brotherhood, it's all those things. It is Aquarius, and Pisces can be interpreted lower than Shambhala. You want to get off the mutable cross? Pisces is your bridge into the fixed cross. So, just for fun, look at your zodiac and start picking out combinations of 3 that suggest themselves to you. And you will find progressive triangles that lead you along the way.
Frederick has a question, and then Vera has had her hand up.
Okay, let's see. Who is the first one?
Well, Frederick, Vera's first, but Frederick relates to your the triangles you were just talking about.
Okay, good. So let's see what I'm looking at here. Frederick on the right says small cross wins if this one. Yeah, great. Okay, good. Is there any way to stabilize this? Well, you could start with your own etheric system. First of all, you can't do it all at once because there's a progressive developmental thing that occurs. You're pretty well stable as a personality, but are we stable as a soul-infused personality? That's the next step. So we have to use that duality between the higher power and our more ordinary self and get that infusion, integration really going. Then we're in a position to make application via the triad and Antakarana to the monad. How long will that take? Well, things do speed up. And from the third initiation on, application to the monad can be made, and even between the second and third initiation, monadic things start happening. You learn about the will, you learn about Sanat Kumara, you learn about identification. So those are factors involving the monad. But until the 3 factors of the triangle are themselves relatively active in your life, the issue of stabilizing their relationship doesn't come into the picture. Once they are, sending energy, interacting with each other, we can stabilize them. Okay. Right now, the thing that we would stabilize is a triangle that would be called personality, disciple, soul. See what I mean? In other words, the disciple is that state of consciousness midway between the elemental life of the personality and the more liberated life of the higher mental plane as the angel of the presence affects it. So that's a triangle too. Now, we can stabilize that one, and the way to do that is through our meditation and service and our study. It's not so bad. We continue to promote soul infusion. We as a disciple become more and more identified as the soul, and the elemental life of the personality becomes more controllable. Stabilization, okay. But if we shift higher, there's another triangle, personality, soul, triad. Oh, we're not yet at the monad. We have to build the Antakarana, and we have to become impersonal, not just transpersonal. Transpersonal, we kind of lift out of all the things we've been doing for many, many lives, and we realize there is a higher part to ourself, but there's also a grand, impersonal, planetary part to ourselves that we call the spiritual triad, and is more related in a way to the planetary logos than it is to us as what we've done in the lower worlds. So, planetary mind, a little bit of it. Planetary love, a little bit of it, Buddhic. Planetary will, a little bit of it. And that would be the higher element in that particular triangle of triad, soul, and personality. But now we've got the soul, or now we have the disappearance gradually, even starts at the third degree, of the causal body. Even starts then at the third degree. The knowledge petals kind of give way to intuition. So we have the soul-infused personality. We have the planetary triad, which is the personality of the monad, and we have the monad itself. Now that's a more advanced triangle, and until we have built the Rainbow Bridge, and until we get this sense of what being really is, which is why I'm having this kind of course called Identify as Being, because, it's one thing to look at the monad as a triangle or a dot on the page, and another thing to feel its presence. Now that's a still higher triangle, and we're not maybe necessarily at the point where we can do any more than simply just be aware of it and start thinking more impersonally and acting planetarily and learning what being is and identifying as being. Then that higher triangle will be available, and on it goes and on it goes. There's going to be a point at which the monad itself is the lower point. What we're going to have, make it short, monad, planetary logos, solar logos, or maybe maybe a sacred planet in there somewhere. Always it will ascend by triangles until we get to that point within the etheric body of a solar logos where we have circles or spheres making up the etheric connection, and there's not too much to say about that yet, the interlocking circles or spheres. But then I wouldn't be surprised from a higher perspective if the triangles don't carry on and on. So, that's reaching into the stratosphere, let's just say. Okay, so that's what I have to say about that. And Vera, go ahead.
Yes. In my life, I have moon in Pisces. And so I was struggling in my life with the emotions, deep emotions, crises, drowning in it. It was just desperation. And when I was at the lowest point, it just came to me, I have to be the driver of my life using my will. And so that I'm just saying that I am listening to what you say and reflecting and trying to apply it sort of in my life. But my question is not about triangles. Today I stumbled on Cosmic Fire, page 11774, Law of Schools. And there it was, that this law of schools does not apply to those who individualized on Earth's chain. And my question is, those who individualize on the moon chain, did they have a solar angel aiding their process?
No. According to, however, once they showed up for further training on the Earth chain, they were assigned a solar angel. See, because there's all of us, he speaks to us. We're mostly disciples from the moon chain and maybe a few from the earlier solar system. And if you are a disciple who has individualized on the earth chain, and you're at this stage where you're studying the Tibetan, and you've really moved fast. And there are a few who have moved like the Christ has moved, really fast, and they're even members of the hierarchy, and they were individualized on the earth chain. But when you came in, if you're moon chain humanity, and most of us are, in the third, and that fits, the third subrace of the Atlantean root race. You know, Atlantis was the fourth root race.
Yeah.
So the third subrace, in come the moon chain monads.
Yeah.
They are assigned a solar angel to
Yes.
propagate, to advance, to push forward their evolution. And if they were not, and Blavatsky almost jokes about it. She calls us, what does she call us? Hothouse plants. We've been cultivated in the hothouse, meaning the under the supervision of a solar angel. Otherwise, as says the Tibetan, at some point, we would be very unadvanced types, less advanced than the great majority on this planet at the moment, less advanced than even the less advanced groups. So if you want to kind of see, so the Aboriginals, the Ainus, the Bushmen, these are the people usually given. Maybe they are individualized in Atlantis, the latest to come in, and they would be, a lot of them would be first ray monads, but they don't have, some of these groups just don't have the solar angel. They are the ones that the solar angels stimulated. They stimulated the monastic principle, but they didn't anchor. And in the hothouse plants, the solar angels anchored to speed the whole thing along. But we have to assume that he's talking to us in white magic about the solar angel, and all through his work, the solar angel, and he knows who he's writing for. And, we have to assume and then experience that we are the types that have this higher power, this higher supervising deity that was once a human being in a previous solar system and has now come back and is lifting up the human beings of the present, just as we, maybe 85%, will be lifting up the human beings of the next solar system. So, what did I miss there, Vera? Was it something that you... I may have wandered off there, but...
No. You did answer my question. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, there are many triangles in the horoscope, and the moon, sun, and rising sign is an important one, and an even more important one, later, for many of us, is the sun, the rising sign, and the point opposite the rising sign, the monadic point. Now, as I've said before, if a person hasn't even cultivated some kind of soul, infusion, you're not going to go talking to them about the monadic point. You're just going to talk to them about, okay, this is the opposite of your sun sign, and you could do well to cultivate some of these qualities. If you're an Aries, you do well to cultivate Libra. If you're a Taurus, you do well to cultivate Scorpio. That's not the same thing as calling it the monadic point. So always, when you're working with people, whether you're using your intuition, your reason, astrology, whatever you use, try to have a rough assessment of what they're really doing. Is it strictly personal? Are they struggling between soul and personality? Have they reversed the wheel so that they really are on their way to real infusion and being a soul in incarnation? Or have they gone farther and become some kind of planetary being that can use the Antakarana and bring in the impersonal spiritual triad? But always assess. This does not mean that you are knowing exactly if your assessment is accurate, but at least you're not going to do something that's way, way off the mark. You know what I mean? Suggest something too low for someone who is higher, suggest something too high for someone who has not reached the point yet. Okay, Vera. So, anyway,
Thank you.
lots going on. And one can survive the moon in Pisces. Okay. Okay, and am I missing?
And Veronica had a
Okay.
comment.
Have an identity crisis. Who am I? Well, the monad is everything, because the monad is pure being, and we are pure being. We are, that homogeneous state of being. When you start lifting all the veils, first you say, oh, I'm this. Then it's a little bigger, oh, I'm this. Oh, now I'm that, And by the time you lift all the veils, and it'll be a long time yet in this universe, you are pure being, ultimately, at the very heart of everything. And all the particularities that you thought you were, well, everybody has those particularities, and in a way, because you are pure being, you're as much the next person as you are what you thought was yourself. So you're looking around, and remember the statement that we use in the identify as being group, naught is but me. Naught is but me. And I don't know whether that's grammatically correct or not, but I kept on thinking, maybe naught is but I would be more correct. But anyway, naught, I'll show you, is but me. And if I put and that's a step, that's a step when you can reach that. Let all the life be drawn to the center and enter thus into the heart of love divine. Then from that point of sentient life, let the soul realize the consciousness of God. Let the word go forth reverberating through the silence, naught is but me. And so, yes, we all need that identity crisis at first to realize, wait a second, we have been identifying incompletely. We've thought that we are just this, just that, but there's more to it. There's a lot more to it. We're not just this, we're not just that. We are this and that and that and this, and we are, see, naught is but me. Well, you know what I would suggest? Study the Tibetan very carefully, subject by subject, paragraph by paragraph, phrase by phrase, word for word. Do that. And at the same time, do the non-particular thing. See, the Tibetan is a teacher who is filled with particulars. He's giving us incredible information, particular information. But there's another way to study in the curriculum of being, where we see the great generality. Somehow, like I said, you look at a thing, you gaze, the heart opens the very depth of the heart, suddenly, boop, something happens, and you realize that the thing that has happened is the appearance of the real you, who is the other person, and out of whom the other person has come, out of whom everything has come, and they are also the same. and it's a very subtle thing, and it's hard to say when it will appear or go away. And maybe the old mystics called that being in God, comparing to not being in God. You know, they say a fly in God is worth more than a palace out of God. So that's suddenly the appearance of it through infuception. Suddenly, whoop, there it is. But, that thing that just appeared, that otherness, that formlessness, that's you. So let's have a lot of identity crises all along the way until we realize that that is the case. There is a correspondence between the solar angel and the cosmic mental plane, because here's the story. There is a causal body of the solar logos, and its causal body is located on the first subplane of the cosmic mental plane, and it is ensouled by a cosmic solar angel, huge being, who knows what its origin would be. And out of that being on the cosmic mental plane came all the other solar angels at this time. I mean, they've come a long way from here, there, and the other place. They were trained on Sirius, just as we will be if we decide to be solar angels. And but then they go into the beingness of the solar logos, and basically these great solar angels ensoul the cosmic causal body of the solar logos, and out of them come all these rays raying forth as solar angels for the lower beings, such as we are, on our own causal level. The egoic lotus was produced by the solar angels. It kind of gives the form and structure to the matter on the higher mental plane for us. And there's a higher mental plane for the solar logos too, and the cosmic solar angel gives form, structure, substance to that causal body. Who knows how long it goes on like that, or whether it's just a particular phase of the development of any being, somehow in the middle of that development, when some kind of being called a solar angel at whatever level appears and facilitates the forward movement, though it was not the case in the previous solar system, as we are told, nor was it the case on the moon chain, we are also told. So anyway, the answer would be yes there, and Veronica. And the soul challenges us with target triangles, so the crisis we might have to face, and how to face oneself. Yeah, well, look, there's choices made. We are told modestly that the solar angel can see ahead a number of lives, maybe 5, I don't know, and backward a number of lives. Maybe it's not worth even thinking about things beyond the next 5 and the anteceding 5 that came before, and plans accordingly, and selects your time of birth, and selects certain elemental forces and Davic forces to comprise your system, or somehow gives access to them, so you get the energies you need. Now, one day, a lot of us will be solar angels of a kind, beginning on a still higher turn of the spiral in the next solar system, and we will learn how all of this is done. We'll be educated on Sirius, how you interact with the members of an atomic triangle, how you interact with all that stuff, all those nodules, all those forces, and influence them. So because the solar angel is a terrific manipulator of the Devic and elemental life and of the chakric life. It just knows what it's doing. And we're getting some help from it. We can't do all that. We cannot. Yes, the constellations are different from the astrological signs. I think it might be page, I don't know, 611 or somewhere in there. But, and this I recommended. If I can't find it this way, I'll find it in another way. And I can't find it that way, so I will find it in another way. And here is the statement. Not page 611, but with 622 in sight. And then, ponder on this. In the understanding of the significance of the distinction between constellations as galaxies of stars and signs as concentrated influences of those constellations, okay, will come fresh light upon the science of astrology. So that's going to be a really, really important statement, page 621 of your esoteric astrology book. Really the origin of these energies, as far as practically we can consider them, are the constellations of those great solar logoi within the constellations. But then there are what I call, interesting enough, Alan Leo, back in 1917 or somewhere in there, he wrote on esoteric astrology, and he had some very good ideas. You'd have to be pretty much of a theosophist to get into it, but if you've read the Tibetan, you would know enough. He dealt with these Devic areas of concentration, like the wedges of an orange. And he considered there were 12, and each one of them was keyed to a different constellation. So they were concentrated influences of the kind that Earth beings could handle, and they came through these areas of Devic substance so that they could be used rather than not used because they were too strong. So study that one. It's a really good one, and really worth pondering. Constellations are different from astrological signs, whom they are devas, the use of energy. Yes, that's it. That's what I'm saying, and Veronica. Can there be a difference in rays between constellations and signs? Well, according to the law of mutation, the kinds of rays that we receive in our solar system, or maybe specifically on our planet, could change. Let's say now, in the last solar system, and whatever condition Virgo is in, it seems to have been sending, or we seem to have been receiving, primarily the third and seventh rays, order and intelligence. And in this solar system, we seem to be receiving rays 2 and 6, love and idealism, love, wisdom, and idealism. However, it is my impression at the present time, given my present level of ignorance, that the sign will be keyed quite exactly to what the constellation is sending, and that we do not have to look for too much variation. It can be an error not to look at things too simply. It can be an error to look at things with too great complexity. Now, some people have said, oh, yeah, there's a different ray for each permanent atom in the spiritual triad. Different ray. Well, nice hypothesis. Like everyone, monastic permanent atom, this got this ray. Buddhic permanent atom's got this ray. Atmic's got this ray. Until DK comes along, basically, you wouldn't suspect it, but Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1, and says, no, the rays of the permanent atoms are all the same. So here's a case where people over-complexified, and they made something more complex than was real. On the other hand, it's also possible to ignore the differences and suffer as a result of not making sufficient discriminations. So in this particular case, I would say treat the sign as you would treat the constellation, only regarding the usability of the sign for our planet and for human beings, whereas the constellation direct hit, maybe the planetary logos can use it, but we human beings could not. It's too much of a hit, too strong. Okay. All right, well, look, folks, it's getting late. Yeah, and thank you, everybody, for your help. As I say, yeah, let's have a good identity crisis. Why not? When people realize that everything that they think they are at the moment is still mistaken identity, even though it's kind of temporarily useful to consider yourself a personality and a soul and all the rest. Actually, we are the monad. Finally, we are the monad. And not just the vehicle of the monad. Finally, we are the pure beingness at the heart of the monad. That's what we are. And that's the only ourness, isness in life forever. It's just that it was a funny thing, but there was a question in Cosmic Fire, and Madame Blavatsky had a friend. She was a doctor, and her name was Dr. Anna Kingsford, and she was a medium and a very high intelligence and all that. And she used to receive these impressions, and you could talk to some of the great ones through her. Well, there are occasionally these people who are the real thing and not just the fake, okay? So anyway, well, the question came up about why is there a universe at all when God is so complete? And the answer was given, well, we didn't want to talk about this with you just yet because it's too much and maybe you wouldn't understand, but the whole idea behind it was that there is a universe, so God, the big one, got tired of being only God and needed some kind of otherness, so it could be something else but just God alone. So, it works out as kind of a joke in a way, like a kind of a cosmic loneliness, but behind it is something about homogeneity and variety, about the infinite and the finite. There are big, deep things behind all that, of what Anna Kingsford brought through. And I'd like to go searching for it with you, But just see if you can find Anna Kingsford yourself. I think it's in Cosmic Fire, but it really makes for very interesting. But I'm afraid, no, yeah, it's a footnote. Of all things, it would have to be a footnote. So maybe one more chance, but I'm pretty sure it's Cosmic Fire. Kingsford? No. It's going to be a 0 because it's a footnote. And they haven't managed to dig those up. But somewhere I have, you know me, I say I'm not going to do something, then I ended up doing it, you know. Let's see, AAB, let's see here. AAB extracts, and I wonder, I just try one more thing before I give up because we don't really have time. And now it's going to work on this thing, and there's no items there either. And if I work on Anna and Good and Evil, oh my God, there it is. Well, just take the Problem of Evil. It's on that. And it's footnote number 65, and you may have to find out what page that's on. This is the great mystery, and we can but indicate it tonight. If we could see all, hear all, touch all, and so forth, there would be no evil. For evil comes from the limitation of perception. Wow, that is absolutely true. Such limitation was necessary if God was to produce aught other than God. Aught other than God must be less than God. And without evil, therefore, God would have remained alone. All things are God according to the measure of spirit in them. Anyway, you know, there's a lot to study there. So find footnote number 65 and learn about God is lonely in his utterness, his homogeneity, and needs evil in order to have company. I don't know, you know, you just can't explain these things, but the conventional explanations don't work either. Okay, friends. So there may be others, but that's all I have time for right now. So anyway, just a slight closing, and we'll handle more tonight when we're doing the actual Triangles broadcasts at 5 o'clock p.m. GMT. And by the way, do tune in on what's happening in England, or rather United Kingdom, because it's really important. Remember that the three countries, United States, United Kingdom, and Russia, are really hold humanity's fate, in the short term anyway, a few hundred years, in their power. And now we have the question again of a challenge to democracy, and we have some tumultuous things occurring in the United Kingdom to try to keep the forces of integrity active rather than the forces of division. So it's worth studying, you know, just to see and to add one's own interior power, I would say, towards the cohesion of the European experiment under Master R, the regent of Europe and the regent of the United States. Okay, so just, you know, think of your own little triangle network, even if it's just one triangle. And the triangles network we're all building, bringing together groups and communities and nations within the soul of humanity. And the triangles which obviously exist between planets, he gives us quite a few of them. And it's going to go further because there are triangles between suns. I would say that our sun and the star Procyon and the star Sirius form such a triangle, and anything we can say about the human etheric system, we might be able to say about the planetary chakras and triangles between them, and also the solar chakras and beyond. It's a great network of triangles, but the important thing is to allow the energies to flow within our own etheric body. That's the important thing. And that can be done, that can be cultivated, and that's what we are doing. You know, you're not made into a master overnight. But we're on our way, and the work of Master DK will facilitate the right kind of progress. Okay, friends, I'm very happy that you've been able to participate here, and I realize some of you, have to go to work and all that, on this planet, and so, or go to sleep, because it gets quite late in the United States as we carry on, and certainly in South America. But from Tuya and myself, lots of love and many blessings. We'll be with you tonight at 5 o'clock and GMT, and I'm working on our next little webinar for Identify as Being. I've finished, I'll send it to you. I've finished some references on identification, and now I'm working on identity, which has a slightly different perspective, and all those related words to be used as seed thoughts as you choose. You can't use them all, but, something may hit you as a seed thought, which may be useful. So we will, with the help of Joe here and also B.L. Allison, we will get this program and others like it up on Makara, and eventually hopefully be able to transfer them to YouTube as well. So have a nice day, evening, night, whatever it is for you. And we'll have Ask all this week on the evening schedule, but we'll begin after today with the usual. On Wednesday, we do have 2 programs. And then after that, the usual, whether it's a webinar or whether it's a broadcast. So, okay. Take care, and we'll be working together to advance the cause, right? Take care. Love you. Bye-bye.